Hey, and welcome to video number 5. Let's talk about email follow-up and reminder templates. I'm going to give you the exact swipe files, so feel free to pause this video at any time while you're jotting this down. And I'm going to go through the email so you know exactly why I have written them this way. And you can customize them however you wish to your own webinar. Let's get started. All right, so let's dive in. I want you to pause this video at any time so that if you're trying to jot things down or you're trying to follow along and type it out, then feel free to do so. All right, so the initial email is this. You want to thank them, of course. You want to say thanks for signing up for the webinar. And of course, feel free to customize this and change it into your own wording. You can say, glad you secured your spot because there are limited spots. So you're basically hinting at that, hey, there are going to be limited spots even though you signed up, kind of thing. So that you're kind of inserting some sort of scarcity into the email so that they are aware that, hey, glad you secured your spot because there are limited spots. So even though they sign up, they still need to attend the webinar to make sure that they secure that spot. So that's kind of what you're trying to communicate. If you can do a better job, feel free to do that. Now you can say this isn't your usual pitch fest. Of course, don't put that if your webinar is a pitch fest, because if people land on your webinar and it is a pitch fest, then guess what? They're going to feel like you lied to them, and you do not want to do that because that will hurt you. But I recommend don't even doing pitch fest. That's just me. To start things out, I wanted to give you a checklist / you can put document, PDF file, action list, workbook, whatever you want to do, infographic. You can get creative. So depending on your audience, you might want to choose something that's pinpointing on their learning style. So checklist that will provide some insight into your problem. So you know your market better than I do. So I've made sure that I've put things in parentheses where you can customize it. I'll be providing you with some tips before the webinar so you'll be able to jump right in. Remember, there are limited spots at the webinar, so make sure you mark your calendar and come earlier. So if you notice throughout this whole process here, this whole email here, I have inserted mini actions. I want them to download the checklist. I want them to review the checklist, and I want them to mark their calendars. Now, while that might be obvious, those little mini actions can build up. And my goal is to use the same concept, same method throughout the other emails. So what I want to do is typically on that same week, you want to do a reminder. So I'll let you decide whether you want to do it 2 days later, whether you want to do it a little bit closer to the other emails. That's up to you. But your whole goal here is you want to do it somewhat closer to the initial email so that they do not forget about you. Now, the goal of this email is to continue giving value, giving content to your webinar subscribers. So you can say something like, hey, first name, have you had a chance to review the checklist / document / PDF / infographic or whatever you're giving away? You're basically telling them, have you had a chance to review it? Most people haven't at this point. So you can remind them by saying, if not, here's a link to download it. So of course you give them a link again. And if they've already downloaded it, that's fine. If they haven't downloaded it, you're giving them another opportunity to do so. Of course, that's the link to your file. So you'll need to insert that link here. You can then insert your best tip from the checklist or whatever document that you gave them. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to get them to follow along with the checklist. You see, so eventually they have become invested in that checklist or that document, and they are actually taking action by referring back to that checklist. So psychologically and subconsciously, what they're doing is taking many actions. They're interested in your checklist. They're going back to your checklist, and you're giving them another tip that relates to the same checklist. So, of course, insert your best tip from the checklist or whatever you gave them. You can say, hope you enjoyed the tip. Don't forget there are limited spots because my GoToWebinar account, for example, holds a limited amount of people. Now, you can obviously replace this with something else. Look forward to seeing you on the webinar. The third email is going to be a reminder that is closer to the webinar. This gives you an opportunity to give another tip from your checklist, document, PDF, infographic, or whatever. So what you want to do is you want to say, X days ago, let's say 4 days ago, I sent you a tip about the checklist. Today I want to share with you some results my customer or I, so maybe you have a case study. Maybe you have a case study that your customer did. That's even more, attractive. You doing a case study is attractive too. But if your customer does a case study and they share with you the results and you share that with everybody else, in their minds they're thinking, well, if your customer was able to do it, then so can I, right? So it's the herd mentality. If you do it, it's one thing, but your customer does it, it's a lot better because it's social proof. If you can do that, that will probably get you a lot of people to attend your webinar, because that's exciting. I mean, that excites me too. So you do that. You say got from implementing X item on the checklist. So see, you're referring back to the checklist. You share another valuable tip. You say, I hope you enjoyed the tip. Remember, the webinar is 1 to 2 days away, and I have many more tips to share with you so that you can get specific results. So specific would be in relation to your own business or whatever you're trying to achieve. Then, of course, you have a reminder. Also, don't forget there are limited spots because my GoToWebinar account holds a limited amount of people, so please come early and look forward to seeing you there. So even though this is kind of redundant, you're giving a valuable tip, which is what matters the most. People generally don't care if it's redundant as long as you're continually giving value. When this happens, you will stand out because most people do not do this. The more value you can give to other people, the more they will come attend your webinar. Then, of course, an hour before the webinar, you can say, hey, first name, your name here. We're almost live, and I'm super excited about sharing with you the results I've received in blank area. Don't forget to bring your checklist. Don't worry if you haven't gone through it because we'll go through it in the webinar, but it's more helpful if you're able to check off at least one item. So for those people who have not actually looked at the checklist, if you can just get them to check off at least one item, even if it's a very, very easy item, then you have basically gotten them to take a mini action. If you can get everybody to take a mini action before they get to your webinar, then your conversions across the board will in fact increase. As long as everything is congruent and as long as you provide great value and you position yourself as the expert. So again, you can say that. Remember to come earlier because there are limited spots. See you soon. Thanks. So I hope you enjoyed that. That was the webinar templates. Feel free to go back, pause the video along the way and jot everything down and customize it to your own business and your own goal. That said, let's move on to video number 6.